Leo stood at the exit of the Amtrak station, slowly draining an entire cup of bitter cold brew. The acrid taste left his tongue feeling numb. He was here to pick someone up, the man who was his stepbrother by no choice of his own, Ethan. In a way, he and Ethan had grown up together. He remembered being 5 years old, perched on the fence that separated their yards. He had watched as a U-Haul van rumbled to a stop next door, disgorging furniture and a small, serious-faced Ethan, whose mother was directing the movers. He had been too young then to really understand concepts like handsome or plain, but he knew Ethan was startlingly pale, like a figure from a storybook, practically glowing in the bright afternoon sun. Leo had watched him with wide eyes before scrambling down from the fence, his own hands grubby. He had presented his most prized possession, a half-melted chocolate bar he'd been saving, holding it out to Ethan as a welcome offering. Ethan, of course, had refused it. He'd given Leo a peculiar look and taken a small step back, his first words a clipped command to get that hand away from him. Now, at 21, Leo thought back on his younger self and could only see a complete idiot, always offering a warm welcome to a cold shoulder. But he hadn't just done it once, he had done it for more than a decade. Operating on the principle that proximity bred affection, he had relentlessly pursued a friendship with Ethan. He'd made it a daily ritual to shout under Ethan's window and leave a carton of chocolate milk on the sill. Eventually, it worked. They became friends. For 15 years, everyone saw them as the tightest pair of brothers, inseparable from kindergarten at 5 to sharing a high school at 17. They were a constant presence at each other's side, so much so that their classmates teased them more than once, remarking that they were more attached than most couples. Thinking of this brought a fresh wave of irritation. He'd been an idiot in high school, too. He'd followed Ethan around like a puppy, never questioning the intensity of their bond, simply believing they were the best of friends. It wasn't until he went off to college, his world expanding, that he had the stunning realization that he harbored unspeakable feelings for his childhood companion. He had been 19 then, Ethan a half-year older. He'd gone to visit Ethan for the summer break. On the city bus, he'd rested his head on Ethan's shoulder, watching their reflections in the window, and a secret smile had spread across his face. When Ethan asked what he was smiling about, he refused to say. If the story had ended there, it would have been a simple, sad tale of unrequited love. Falling for your brilliant and striking best friend was heartbreaking but not unheard of. The devastating part was that he had, eventually, won Ethan over. They had managed a year as long-distance boyfriends before breaking up a few months ago. And now, he stood at the train station, feigning a casual indifference. But inside, it felt as if a million ants were crawling under his skin. His fingertips itched with the urge to turn and run. But he didn't dare. Before he left, his father had given him strict orders to be nice to his brother. He'd been told not to be petty or awkward, that it wasn't a good look. Leo wanted to roll his eyes just thinking about it. He didn't feel like being the bigger person, who could look at their ex and put on a happy face. His father was one to talk. He and Ethan's mother, Sarah, had been neighbors for 20 years. Leo had sensed something was off between them back in high school and had even confronted his dad, who had vehemently denied it. And now, here they were. The two of them had clearly been carrying on in secret, choosing the most inopportune moment, right after he and Ethan had broken up, to joyfully announce their engagement. He'd been stunned speechless on the spot. His dad had delivered the news over the phone, giving him no chance to protest in person. He had cheerfully explained that, in a little while, he and Sarah would be having a small ceremony. He told Leo he could keep calling her Sarah, but if he wanted to call her Mom, she wouldn't mind. From now on, Ethan was his brother, and he needed to treat him well and stop being so childish. He needed to be the one to appease him. Leo scoffed internally. Who was appeasing whom? Honestly, during their relationship, he had been the one bending over backwards. But he couldn't say that. The words were a bitter pill he had to swallow, leaving him choked and silent. In all fairness, he adored Sarah. He had no problem with her becoming his stepmother. But her son, the baggage that came with her, was another story. What kind of moron wanted their ex-boyfriend as a brother? Leo cursed under his breath as he finished the last of his cold brew. He crumpled the plastic cup in his hand and tossed it in a perfect arc into a trash can across the way. When he turned back to scan the exiting crowd with growing impatience, a figure caught his eye and held it. He spotted Ethan instantly in the bustling throng. It seemed that no matter the time or place, Ethan was always the most conspicuous person in the room. In high school, when everyone else showed up on the first day looking disheveled, Ethan would be there in his crisp school blazer. Standing at the front as a student representative, a stark, luminous figure in a sea of gray. His features were handsome, carved with clean, severe lines, and he carried an air of aloofness that was both infuriating and undeniably earned. Now, at 21, Ethan pulled a black rolling suitcase, an open baseball jacket slung over his shoulders, and a white earbud tucked into one ear. He moved through the crowd unhurriedly, swiped his ticket, and passed through the gate with a blank, almost lazy expression that still managed to draw every eye. It certainly drew Leo's. He stood there, a fool propped up by a concrete pillar, and didn't snap out of it until Ethan was standing directly in front of him. Ethan was holding a cold brew of his own, in identical packaging from a kiosk inside the station. He observed Leo's dazed expression and pressed the cold cup against his cheek. Ethan asked what he was staring at, his eyebrow raised in amusement, wondering if the weight had turned him into a statue. "You're the statue." Leo snapped back to reality, the retort automatic. The ingrained familiarity of 15 years made him instinctively reach for the duffel bag slung over Ethan's shoulder. Ethan's luggage looked heavy, especially the suitcase. But halfway through the motion, he froze. Why should he? Was Ethan some kind of prince? After chasing after him for more than a decade, was he supposed to keep waiting on him even after they'd broken up? How pathetic. Ethan, however, was entirely unceremonious. He simply transferred the black duffel into Leo's waiting hand. He offered a word of thanks. Ethan then gave Leo a slight smile. When he wasn't smiling, Ethan looked particularly cold. But when he did, it was captivating, possessing a kind of careless allure. Leo had always been susceptible to a handsome face. It was hard to deny that Ethan's looks were a significant part of the initial attraction. The protest on the tip of his tongue died before it could be spoken. But as they walked out of the station, his indignation returned. He grumbled about whether Ethan had lost the use of his hands. Had studying medicine somehow crippled him? Ethan, effortlessly wheeling the heavy suitcase, replied that Leo himself had told him to protect his hands. Leo had said that, but he'd been head over heels for Ethan at the time, capable of saying anything. Ethan's hands, pale and elegant, were destined to hold surgical scalpels, and Leo had wanted to preserve them like precious artifacts. He shot Ethan a glare and fell silent. Once in the car, Ethan slid into the driver's seat and asked for the keys. He said he would drive, commenting on Leo's tendency to drive like a maniac in city traffic and his own desire to live a little longer. The words made Leo's teeth itch, but he wasn't eager to drive anyway. The traffic on the way here had been a nightmare, and he had no desire to repeat the experience. He gave Ethan a withering look and tossed the keys over. He muttered that Ethan was the steadiest driver he knew, like a tortoise. Ethan seemed unbothered, starting the car. The Mercedes was actually Leo's father's, But David had bought a new Land Rover a couple of years ago, so this one was mostly left for the boys to use. Ethan was a natural on the road, far more composed than Leo. He didn't get agitated in traffic, never honked or tried to cut people off, but he also never allowed anyone to merge in front of him. Leo found the atmosphere inside the car suffocating. For a pre-med student, Ethan didn't smell of antiseptic. Instead, there was a light, pleasant fragrance of citrus and lemon that silently filled the air. After a moment, Leo realized Ethan's bag was still in his lap. He'd forgotten to put it in the trunk. He asked what on earth Ethan had packed to make it so heavy, feeling a sudden urge to toss it out the window. Ethan, one hand on the steering wheel, advised against that. He mentioned there was a gift for Leo inside. Leo was taken aback. He asked why Ethan would get him a gift, his expression awkward. The bag in his hands suddenly felt like a bomb. He declared that he didn't want it. Why not? Why not? Leo was speechless. He demanded to know why Ethan was playing dumb. Had he forgotten so quickly that they had broken up? As they crossed a bridge, nearing the lane where both their houses stood, Ethan suddenly pulled the car over beneath a willow tree, its branches bare in the winter air. A cold wind sent a few dead leaves skittering against the windshield. Ethan looked at Leo, his own expression turning cool. He reminded Leo that it was Leo himself who had said they weren't right as a couple, that it had all been a temporary mistake. Ethan asked if he remembered saying they should go back to being friends, childhood buddies. He questioned what was so wrong with him bringing back a little something from his college town for his best friend. He added that Leo's dad and his mom were getting gifts too. It wasn't just for him. So he didn't understand what the fuss was about. Leo was stunned. So the gift wasn't exclusively for him. That made sense. It was his own wishful thinking that had led him astray. A blush crept up his neck. The embarrassment made him feel like he couldn't look up. He grew even more withdrawn and silent. Ethan tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, thinking for a moment. He said they needed to talk. Talk. Leo was very familiar with those words. Ethan was always wanting to talk, about everything from his mistake-riddled homework to his ditching class to fight, and even his attempts to ask girls out. There was nothing in the world Ethan didn't feel the need to manage. Leo pressed his lips together, thinking that Ethan's mother-hen instincts were flaring up again. He leaned back against the passenger seat, stretching his body out, and asked what Ethan wanted to talk about. Ethan's gaze swept over Leo. Leo had always cared about his appearance, and even in winter, he was dressed in a thin black trench coat. He'd taken off his scarf in the car, revealing a delicate stretch of his neck. Leo had always been good-looking. As a child, his eyes and face had been round, but he had grown into a handsome, fair-skinned young man who could look quite elegant and refined when he wasn't speaking. He turned heads wherever he went, attracting glances from both girls and even some guys. Ethan stated that breaking up was fine, but now Leo had to call him brother. When they got home, they would be spending the entire winter break together. Not just as neighbors, but under the same roof. If Leo kept acting this way toward him, he questioned if Leo was trying to make sure their parents found out they had been together. Hearing this, Leo bristled. He demanded to know how he had been acting. Ethan looked at him with a yo-yo gaze, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips, as if he found the question ridiculous. Leo knew himself that he wasn't entirely in the right, and his posture softened as he slumped back into the seat. Fine. He admitted he had a bit of an attitude whenever he saw Ethan. But who could be calm and composed around an ex? An ex was an ex for a reason, usually because something had gone wrong. He wasn't trying to place all the blame on Ethan. He had played his part in the mess. Ethan pointed out that Leo was the one who wanted to break up, who said he didn't want to be in a relationship anymore. Now Leo was acting as if he couldn't stand the sight of him. He asked if Leo really thought he didn't have a temper. Leo was speechless. It was true. He had been the one to pursue Ethan, and he had been the one to end it. On the surface, at least, he was the one who had dumped him. He declared it was his fault, his tone laced with frustration. He suggested that since they weren't home yet, they should clear the air. The breakup was the breakup, and going home was going home. They should just forget about their relationship. Once they were home, they were just brothers. As Leo said the word brothers, his eyelashes trembled. Who could believe that exes could go back to being brothers? But what other choice did they have? Their parents were getting married, planning a reception, sending out invitations. They couldn't very well come out to their families now. Getting grounded was one thing, but hurting their parents was another. When they were deeply in love, they might have done something crazy for each other. But now that they were broken up, it just wasn't worth it. He took a breath, his mind racing. He remembered all the times Ethan had stayed up late helping him with his homework, had washed his jacket for him, had bought him breakfast. His heart softened. His tone softened too, as he finally conceded. He would control his temper, bro. That single word made something twitch in Ethan's brow. Leo rarely called him that. Even though he was younger by 6 months, he only used that term when he was trying to be cute to get something he wanted. But Ethan, for all his composure, had a weakness for it. A short, cold laugh escaped Ethan's lips. He said that was all he needed to hear. Let's go home. He started the car again. The car turned a corner and entered a quiet street. A small sign at the entrance reading Willow Creek Lane. As they drove down the lane, Ethan slowed down, and the atmosphere in the car seemed to thicken. We're here. Ethan parked the car next to a house at the very end of the street. There were no designated parking spots. Everyone just parked wherever they could. But years ago, this lane hadn't been filled with cars, just a few motorcycles leaning in the sun. Ethan knew how to ride a motorcycle too. On the surface, he was the perfect student, cool and brilliant, but underneath he was far more rebellious than Leo. During a stressful period in his senior year, he had secretly street raced for a month before stopping on his own. No one ever knew. The only person he had ever taken on a motorcycle ride was Leo. He had sold that first bike to buy Leo a pair of basketball shoes. He had driven his mom's old second-hand scooter, meandering slowly through the streets with Leo clinging to him from behind, complaining that he was going too slow. Ethan thought to himself that it had only been 2 or 3 years, but it felt like a lifetime ago. He asked Leo why he wasn't getting out of the car. Leo rested his chin on his hand, staring at the flickering streetlights at the end of the lane. Winter nights came early. It was only 6 o'clock, but the sky was already dark. He retorted that Ethan wasn't getting out either, so why was he being bossed around? Leo was feeling agitated. He pulled a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and lowered the window. He told Ethan to go on inside, that he was going to have a smoke first. With a flick of his thumb, a small flame erupted in the dark car, a fleeting orange flower. The faint scent of mint drifted out, the tobacco smell light and not unpleasant. He was hesitant to go inside, a feeling akin to homecoming jitters. It was fine when it was just the two of them, but the thought of being in the house with his dad and Ethan's mom, all 4 of them under one roof playing Happy Family, made his skin crawl. Ethan's voice was cold when he said it looked like Leo was asking for a beating. The moment he stepped inside, his dad would come looking for him, and seeing him smoke would surely earn him a lecture. Leo gave a short, bitter laugh, exhaling a plume of smoke. He said it wasn't as if Ethan was so innocent. He hadn't smoked before college. The real smoker had been Ethan. The first time he'd seen it, He'd been shocked, looking at Ethan as if he were a monster, and had even tried to force him to quit. Ethan had just pushed him onto a chair and playfully smacked him for it, so lightly it was more like flirting. But after getting into medical school, Ethan had quit just like that. He hadn't touched a cigarette since. It was Leo who, over the past year of turmoil, had slowly picked up the habit. At this thought, he offered the pack to Ethan, teasing him provocatively. "Want one?" he asked, a challenge in his bright eyes, which shone even in the dim car. The soft, orange glow from the streetlight outside cast his handsome features in shadow, his lips parting and closing, undeniably alluring. Ethan's gaze darkened. No. He pushed the cigarette pack back toward Leo, but his eyes paused on the brand. It was the same one he used to smoke, a low-nicotine blend. Leo shrugged and didn't press the issue. Smoking was bad for you. A future doctor like Ethan needed to live a long life. They sat in silence for a few more minutes. After Leo finished his cigarette, he finally, with a sense of grim acceptance, pushed open the car door. He grabbed Ethan's duffel bag. "Let's go," he said. "Time to go home." He shut the door with a thud. Ethan got out from the other side, one carrying a suitcase, the other a duffel bag. They walked side by side into the yard of the nearby house. It was a two-story home with white siding and gray shingles, with decorative latticework on the windows. A few gnarled maple and dogwood trees stood in the corner of the yard. A stone bench and table were set against the wall, the same spot where Leo and Ethan used to do their homework as kids. This was Leo's home. It was also a place where Ethan had come and gone freely for over a decade. They walked into the house together, the light stretching and distorting their shadows, weaving them together as if they were inseparable. David and Sarah had been calculating the time, figuring the boys would be back soon. They were busy in the kitchen, murmuring to each other, when they heard noises from the entrance. Sarah immediately poked her head out the door and saw Leo and Ethan walking in. Both of them were tall and handsome, and the sight of them standing in the doorway made her break into a smile. But when she looked at Leo, she seemed a bit shy. Despite knowing him so well, she was a little uncertain, her smile slightly strained. She was a tall woman with her long hair pulled back, her fair, gentle features much softer than Ethan's. She spoke softly, saying it was good to have Leo back, and that she had told his father not to make him go all the way to the station to pick up Ethan. It was too much trouble. Facing Sarah, Leo turned into a well-behaved child, smiling good-naturedly. No trouble at all. He debated whether to call her Sarah or Mom, but decided he wasn't ready for the change and gently called her Sarah. Seeing his familiar attitude, Sarah seemed to relax. Beside him, Ethan greeted his mother and Mr. Hayes. David came out of the kitchen as well. As Leo's biological father, he didn't resemble his son much. He looked serious and proper, not at all like a businessman. He was happy to see Ethan. The young man had grown up under his watch and met nearly all his expectations for a child. Then he glanced at his own son, who seemed to ignore him. But he knew Leo was just being difficult with him. Leo had recently started an internship at a seniors music studio, playing in some band. David had lectured him about it, saying it was distracting from his studies, and Leo hadn't spoken to him since. He was stubborn, refusing his allowance and insisting on saving his own money for a new guitar. David let him be. As a father, he wasn't about to be the first to cave. He told Leo to go wash his hands, that dinner was ready. He then told him to come help set the table, pointing out how proactive Ethan was. Leo looked over and saw that shameless Ethan had already rolled up his sleeves and headed into the kitchen. Leo hissed under his breath. What a phony, making himself look so diligent and Leo so lazy. He instinctively retorted to his father that if he liked Ethan so much, he should just adopt him. He'd said this many times before, whenever his father went on about Ethan. But as soon as the words left his mouth today, he realized it felt different. And just then, Ethan emerged from the kitchen carrying a dish, his eyes sweeping over Leo with a look that was neither heavy nor light. When they were dating, Leo had shamelessly joked that Ethan would one day marry into his family. Ethan had just laughed coldly and pulled him into bed. It was a joke they could make freely in the past, but now it carried an unspoken weight. Only his father didn't notice the change, clapping him on the back of the head. He told him to stop talking nonsense, that Ethan was already part of the family. Leo's lips twitched. Wasn't that the truth? Ethan really was his brother now. Not wanting to face him, Leo pushed open the door and went into the kitchen as well. At 7:30, dinner began. A spread of 8 hot dishes and 2 cold salads covered the table. A small glass of red wine was poured for each of them. The rectangular table was large enough for 7 or 8 people. He and Leo sat across from each other, while Sarah and David sat side by side, leaving the side facing the living room empty. It wasn't the first time the 4 of them had sat at this marble table, but the atmosphere was unusually heavy. The 2 parents were preoccupied, looking at their sons with a touch of unease. David looked at Ethan and Leo on either side of the table and felt a surge of emotion. He and Leo were longtime residents of Willow Creek Lane. Leo had been born here, a tiny, frail baby who gave no hint of the handsome young man he would become. Ethan had only been 5 when he arrived, a quiet, well-behaved boy trailing after Sarah. In the blink of an eye, they were both grown. At this thought, David's expression grew more serious. He looked at Ethan. He began by saying that he had spoken to Ethan on the phone about his mother and him. Both boys knew why they had been asked to come home for the break. As their parents, he and Sarah believed in being open and honest. He said that family was about trust and connection, and that he and Sarah were serious about being together. Even though they were the parents and the boys were the children, as family members, they all had a say. Now that they were both back, before they told their friends and relatives, they wanted to formally ask for their opinion. Did they approve of their parents' arrangement? David couldn't quite bring himself to say the word marriage. He and Sarah were both 46, middle-aged, and discussing it in front of their children required a certain adult reserve. Leo saw through his father's pretense and couldn't help a small, sardonic smile from forming. But he noticed Sarah's glance and quickly straightened his face, afraid of being misunderstood. He wasn't sure what to say. His parents had divorced when he was 3. His mother had moved abroad to pursue her career and was now a journalist in New York. His father had raised him alone, but was always busy with work. Growing up, he had spent a lot of time at Ethan's house, under Sarah's care. When he was younger, he had resented his parents' divorce, but now, at 20, he understood. They were just not meant to be, and it made no sense for them to be trapped in an unhappy marriage. So, he truly had no objection to Sarah becoming his stepmother. If he had to name an issue, he glanced at Ethan across the table, just as Ethan looked up at him. Ethan's eyes were as dark as ink, framed by long, thick lashes. Contrary to his cool nature, his gaze was always intense and soulful. It was the only feature he shared with Sarah. Leo felt seared by that look and quickly turned away. He had no objections, he said, pursing his lips and choosing his words carefully. He looked up and gave Sarah a genuine smile. He told her she knew he'd never been good with words, but what he was about to say was sincere. He thought it was great that she and his dad wanted to spend their lives together. It was good for them to have a companion, especially one they knew so well. He smiled at her again. Having known Sarah for over a decade, he knew she was a kind and gentle soul. He spoke with utmost sincerity, hoping to put her at ease. Sarah was clearly moved, her eyes glistening with tears as she looked at him. Leo felt a little embarrassed and looked down. His relationship with his own mother was more like a friendship. His mom was a free spirit who hadn't been very involved in his upbringing, acting more as a life coach who gave him terrible advice like skipping school for music festivals. Most of his impressions of a loving mother came from Sarah. Ethan's gaze shifted between Sarah and Leo. He had been silent the whole time, which made David nervous. Unlike Leo, that little rascal, Ethan had always been like an adult. Since high school, he had been calm, self-possessed, mature, and sensible. If he objected, David figured his marriage plans were half-doomed. Fortunately, Ethan did not object. He was just even more taciturn than Leo. After a moment of thought, he said he had no objections either, addressing David as Mr. Hayes. He explained that since both he and Leo were away at college, he was grateful that his mom would have David to look after her. He thanked him, his tone formal and serious. David, who had been sweating with nerves, took a few seconds to process before happily responding that of course he would. Ethan and Leo exchanged a look, the understanding built over years showing in that moment. They both stood up, raising their untouched glasses of wine, and toasted their parents. David and Sarah were too happy to speak. David, breaking from his usual seriousness, cheerfully told them to eat up, not to be formal, and to act just like they always had. Sarah placed a piece of sweet sticky rice with dates in each of their bowls. She looked at Leo with affection, telling him to eat more, that he looked like he'd lost weight. She asked if he wanted her to make some red velvet cake for him tomorrow. She owned a bakery, and Leo had grown up on her cakes. In contrast, Ethan had little interest in sweets. Leo obediently agreed. As they ate, David drank a little more wine, and his happiness made him more talkative than usual. He rambled on about the wedding plans. Since it was a second marriage for both of them and at their age, they didn't want a big affair, just a few tables for close friends and family. He mentioned that it was Sarah's surgery last year that made him make up his mind. He mused that sometimes a person needs an external push. Even though they had known each other for years, sometimes you don't realize the importance of the people closest to you. It wasn't until her surgery, when he was waiting outside the operating room, that he felt true fear. He kept imagining the worst, then worrying that his negative thoughts would somehow affect her. He directed these last few sentences at Ethan. Last year, Sarah had an emergency appendectomy. While not life-threatening, it wasn't a minor illness either, and both families had been thrown into a panic. The three men had waited outside the operating room during the surgery. Ethan had a heavy course load, but he waited until Sarah's condition stabilized before returning to school. Leo's school was less strict, so he came back for a few days, spending all his time in Sarah's hospital room, to the point where the doctors and nurses thought he was her biological son. Ethan could understand David's feelings. At the time, he had appeared calm, discussing the surgical risks with the doctor with composure. But once outside the hospital, he had leaned on Leo's shoulder, feeling an immense fatigue. Leo, in contrast, had been the steady one, holding his hand and whispering that everything would be okay. They hadn't broken up yet. Leo was his childhood friend, his brother, and his irreplaceable love. At this thought, something tugged at Ethan's heart. He looked across at Leo, who was focused on his food. Sarah truly thought Leo was thinner and kept piling food onto his plate. Leo's cheeks were puffed out like a hamster's as he ate. He looked a little silly. A hint of a smile touched Ethan's eyes, but it quickly vanished. Liar. He looked so open and guileless, and he had given Ethan his whole heart. Yet when he broke up with him, it was swift and absolute, leaving no room for discussion. It made Ethan wonder if all of Leo's affection, his warmth and his kisses, had been just a dream. His intense stare at Leo was interpreted differently by David, who was truly happy tonight. He clapped Ethan on the shoulder and then turned to his own son. He remarked how Leo and Ethan had been like real brothers since they were kids, and now that their two families were becoming one, he was incredibly pleased that they truly were brothers. David looked at Ethan with increasing satisfaction. He had always wished Ethan were his own son, and now his wish had sort of come true. He spoke to Ethan with a gentle expression, telling him that as the older brother, he should look after that troublemaker. If Leo acted up or misbehaved, Ethan had his permission to discipline him however he saw fit. Leo nearly bit the rib bone in his mouth in half. Seriously? He looked at his own father in disbelief. How much more could Ethan manage him? He was practically on a leash already. Ethan, however, found the words quite pleasing. He looked at Leo with an unreadable smile and replied to David with humble grace. He assured him not to worry, that he would keep a good eye on him. Ha! Leo felt sick looking at Ethan's sanctimonious face for another second. When his parents weren't looking, he silently mouthed a screw you at Ethan. But he'd had some wine, and his pale face was flushed pink, robbing the gesture of any menace. His eyes, unlike Ethan's deep and intense ones, were clear and bright like a lake, reflecting the world back. Ethan let out a soft scoff. Pathetic. After dinner, the two young men volunteered to clear the table and wash the dishes, letting Sarah and David watch television in the living room. Ethan distributed the gifts he had brought back. They weren't anything special. His university was in a city famous for its rose tea and sweet rice cakes, and he always brought some back. David was quite moved, remarking to Sarah that there was a certain satisfaction in raising children. They were finally grown up and sensible. But then he worriedly glanced towards the kitchen, hoping Leo wouldn't break any of the dishes. In the kitchen, Leo, wearing a blue apron, was pleased to see Ethan in the pink one. Ethan knew what he was smiling about, but couldn't be bothered to react. He rolled up his sleeves and washed the dishes with the same meticulous efficiency he would use for lab equipment. Leo was useless. He rarely did chores as David employed a cleaning lady. He was born to be spoiled. After he and Ethan became friends, Ethan was the one who would stick the straw in his juice box on their way to kindergarten. The only time he had ever tried to be domestic was during his relationship with Ethan, after his dorm's RA gave him some misguided advice that partners needed to be pampered. He had played the role of the dutiful partner for a while, even hand-washing Ethan's clothes once. At the time, Ethan had looked at him as if he were possessed and suggested a trip to the hospital to get his head checked. Now, standing at the sink, he frowned, scrubbing one plate for ages and still feeling it wasn't clean, tempted to add more soap. Ethan couldn't watch anymore. He gently nudged him with his foot. He told Leo to stand aside and stop making a mess. Ethan took off his gloves, grabbed an apple from the fruit basket, washed it quickly, and stuck it in Leo's hand. Leo felt awkward but was genuinely unhelpful, so he leaned against the counter and began crunching on the apple. Feeling a bit guilty for eating alone, he impulsively asked Ethan if he wanted some. The moment the words were out, he wanted to bite his tongue off. Eat what? He quickly tried to correct himself, offering to wash another one for him. Ethan gave him a fleeting glance and didn't reply, but tilted his head slightly toward Leo. The meaning was clear. He wanted a bite of the one Leo was holding. Leo was reluctant, but Ethan just looked at him with a placid expression that made his hesitation seem petty. He turned the apple around and offered the untouched side. Ethan seemed to see through his little trick and gave him a mocking look. He leaned down and took a bite, the crunching sound right next to where Leo's own bite mark was. Ethan chewed slowly and then commented that it wasn't very sweet. Leo retorted that he should be less picky, that his dad had bought them specifically because he knew Ethan liked apples, even splurging on the imported ones. But his dad was a terrible judge of fruit. It really wasn't very sweet. Leo finished the rest of the apple and tossed the core into the trash. Ethan had just finished washing the dishes, stacking them neatly, and was drying his hands with a paper towel. But a strange feeling stirred in Leo as he glanced at Ethan's hands. They needed to get a dishwasher, he thought randomly as they walked out of the kitchen. They couldn't just keep letting Ethan do the dishes. It would look like they were mistreating their stepson. And even when Ethan went back to school, his dad and Sarah could use it. Lost in thought, he didn't watch where he was going and almost walked right into Ethan's back. Ethan turned, accustomed to this, and grabbed his arm, steering him onto the sofa. The newly formed family of 4 sat neatly in the living room watching television. It was some variety show special featuring mostly older celebrities Leo didn't recognize, and the music was a garble of noise to him. But he didn't want to go back to his room just yet. He looked at Ethan and remembered last winter break, when their 2 families had also gathered like this in the living room. Back then, he had just started dating Ethan, and they were in the honeymoon phase. He hadn't sat across from Ethan like he was now. He had squeezed onto the same single armchair, half his body practically in Ethan's lap. The chair, though spacious for one, was tight for 2 grown men, but he had insisted. His dad had frowned, scolding him for his lack of decorum, asking why he had to be glued to Ethan when there was so much space in the house. He'd even told Ethan not to indulge him, to make him get off. But Leo, feeling bold, had just rested his head on Ethan's shoulder and looked at his dad defiantly. Ethan had only smiled, one hand resting on Leo's waist. It didn't look like he was using any force, but it was enough to keep Leo securely in his arms. He had placated David, telling him it was fine, that Leo wasn't heavy. David had been speechless, muttering that it wasn't a matter of weight and telling Ethan to stop spoiling him. He had shaken his head, unable to stand the sight of his son, and left the room. Leo, victorious, had continued to nestle against Ethan, rubbing his cheek against Ethan's like a cat. Their closeness had always been their shield. No one would ever suspect anything more or notice their intertwined fingers. Leo couldn't remember what was on TV that night. Only the sound of Ethan's voice in his ear and the warmth of his hand on his waist. His breath on the back of his neck. Not like now, where they sat consciously apart in separate armchairs. They stayed in the living room until 10, when the parents finally decided to head to bed. Now that they were getting married, living under one roof was more convenient. David's 2-story house had been completely renovated last year, so it was Sarah who had moved in. David explained to Ethan that the room next to Leo's upstairs had been prepared for him, but for tonight, he would have to make do in Leo's room. He said the light fixture in his room was broken for some reason and he would replace it tomorrow. He asked if that was okay. Both Ethan and Leo froze at the words. Leo was dumbfounded. He subconsciously started to refuse, but his eyes met Sarah's smiling face, and the words died in his throat. He turned to look at Ethan. Ethan also seemed hesitant. He had stayed over in Leo's room plenty of times before, but things were different now. He suggested quietly that maybe he should just sleep next door, that it would only take a few minutes to come over in the morning. David disagreed, saying it would be so cold and lonely over there. He'd just had central heating installed, and the house was warm. He worried that Ethan was still feeling awkward about the new arrangement. Why else would he be reluctant to stay over now when he never had a problem before? Or perhaps he and Leo had had a fight. He couldn't ask that directly, so he just looked at his own son with a questioning gaze. Leo gritted his teeth. He definitely did not want to share a room with Ethan. But their reactions were so unusual that if he kept refusing, even an idiot could tell something was wrong between them. The moment Ethan left, his dad would probably drag him off for an interrogation. He shot a quick, frustrated glance at Ethan, but then adopted a nonchalant tone. He backed up his dad, asking Ethan what he was running for. He joked that sleeping with him wouldn't kill him, and promised not to steal the blankets. Ethan looked at Leo, surprised. Leo stared at the floor, avoiding his gaze. But the matter was settled. Refusing now would seem overly dramatic and suspicious. Ethan understood Leo's predicament. After a moment's thought, he relented. He would sleep with Leo. David breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. That was more like it. He added that they could talk late into the night. With the room situation sorted, the family dispersed to their respective rooms. There were bathrooms on both floors, the upstairs one at the end of the hall. Leo was brushing his teeth when Ethan squeezed in. "What are you doing?" Leo, his mouth full of foam, stared at Ethan's reflection in the mirror. "Showering," Ethan said, and began to take off his clothes. "Damn it, wait." Leo quickly spat out the foam and rinsed his mouth. He protested, demanding to know how Ethan could be so shameless while he was still in here. Shameless? Ethan, hearing this assessment, raised an eyebrow and turned to face Leo. He had already taken off his cashmere sweater, revealing a lean, muscular torso. His skin was fair, but his muscles were well-defined, a stark contrast to his refined face. For a moment, Leo was struck, his throat bobbing involuntarily. He forced his gaze up to Ethan's face. But that was even worse. Ethan seemed to have been sculpted to his exact aesthetic preferences. Under the bright bathroom light, every feature was perfectly delineated. A high nose, thin lips, and eyes that shimmered like spring water. Leo's resolve weakened further. Ethan looked at him, his voice cool. He asked who was being shameless. He reminded Leo that he used to be the one who insisted on showering together, and now that Leo was done, he was being called shameless for taking off a shirt? Leo had nothing to say. It was true. He was done showering and brushing his teeth. He could leave. But he still felt indignant, retorting sullenly that Ethan knew that was in the past. He had showered with Ethan before, but that was when they were 17 or 18. He hadn't understood his feelings then, and would just stare at Ethan, not knowing why. Ethan, on the other hand, had seemed annoyed, always rushing through his shower the moment Leo entered, which had only made Leo more persistent, even hugging Ethan's waist and calling him a heartbreaker. Now the tables had turned. He was the one who wanted space, and he was the heartbreaker, not Ethan. He placed his toothbrush back in its cup. "Fine," he said, "do whatever you want. I'm done. I'm leaving." He bolted, slamming the door behind him with a loud crack that surely would have woken the parents if they weren't on the second floor. Ethan was left alone in the brightly lit bathroom. He lowered his eyes, his thick lashes hiding the darkness in his expression. Back in his room, Leo dove under the covers. It was winter, but with the heating on, it wasn't cold. The room was well insulated, and he couldn't hear the shower. He lay there playing on his phone, but his mind was elsewhere. His ears pricked for the sound of the door opening. He was starting to regret this. Since their breakup, he had avoided seeing Ethan. From last summer until now, it had been over 4 months. It was easier when they were apart. The mind is a funny thing. He could close his eyes and perfectly recall the feel of Ethan's fingers, the way he smiled, the lips that had kissed his. But when he opened his eyes, The space next to him was empty. It was almost bearable. He had planned to come home late for winter break, maybe just for New Year's Eve and then leave again. But his dad's phone call had ruined his plans. He had used Sarah's surgery as an excuse not to visit for a while, but now that it was the holidays, he had no reason to stay away. But who could have predicted that his first day back would involve sharing a bed with his ex? Leo's character in the game on his phone died with a sharp sound, and his face was a rigid mask. He felt like his legs were about to cramp up from the tension. As if on cue, the door clicked open. Ethan walked in, rubbing his hair with a towel, bringing a cloud of steam and warmth with him. Leo didn't want to look, but his eyes were drawn over the top of his phone to Ethan. Fresh from the shower, Ethan's skin looked even paler, almost translucent against his dark, damp hair. Water droplets traced a path down his sharp jawline. He was only wearing a pair of pajama pants, his chest still beaded with water. He wiped it a couple of times before picking up his pajama shirt from the bed and slowly buttoning it up. Leo wanted to curse. Was this a strip club? But he knew it was his own dirty mind. Before they were dating, Ethan had always been like this. Frustrated, Leo burrowed under the covers. But Ethan wouldn't let him be. He reached over and pulled the blanket off him. What now? Leo was about to lose his temper when Ethan spoke. He told Leo that if he was really that uncomfortable, he could go sleep in the other room. He would wake up early so their parents wouldn't know. Leo was silenced. He stared at Ethan, whose expression was blank, his demeanor calm. He seemed to mean it. That would be great, Leo thought. He could have the big bed all to himself. But when he opened his mouth, the words wouldn't come out. He scowled at Ethan, asking how he would sleep. The bed next door wasn't even made, just a bare mattress. He wouldn't want him to freeze. He fluffed the warm-down comforter on his own bed, which was covered with a hand-knitted blanket. He told Ethan to stop talking nonsense and get in. Ethan raised an eyebrow, studying Leo for a long moment. Leo lay under the covers, his fair face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and reluctance, his lips pressed together. He was wearing the pale gray silk pajamas Ethan had bought for him, one hand holding the comforter open, looking at him with an unwilling expression that was almost an invitation. Ethan sighed internally, a part of him genuinely wanting to take the offer and sleep next door. But he said nothing, simply lifted the cover and slid into bed beside Leo. The room was dark except for a sliver of milky moonlight filtering through the window, casting a faint, hazy glow. It was so quiet he could almost hear his own heart beating. He couldn't sleep. The room was warm, the bed was warmer, and he was so close to Ethan that a slight movement would bring them into contact. They had shared a bed countless times before, both before and during their relationship. Leo stared at the ceiling, his mind drifting back to the last time he had visited Ethan, just before their breakup. It had been nearing summer, and the air conditioning in Ethan's dorm was broken, but he had still insisted on clinging to Ethan, kissing him. Sweat had trickled down his temples, and Ethan's body had been just as hot. Their skin had stuck together, their lips and tongues entwined, oblivious to the heat. The only sounds in the room, the wet, desperate noises of their kisses. Damn it. Leo squeezed his eyes shut. His mind was in the gutter. It was almost half a year ago, yet every detail was still so vivid. He swallowed hard, feeling a physical reaction building. He turned his back to Ethan, facing the wall. But after a moment, the silence from Ethan's side felt too absolute. He stared at the wall for a bit longer, then couldn't resist turning back to look. Ethan's eyes were closed, his breathing even as he lay on the adjacent pillow. He was completely still, clearly already asleep. Leo had been worried about this two exes in one bed, even after months apart. What if a spark ignited? But it seemed he had worried for nothing. Ethan was sleeping more soundly than anyone. Still not convinced, he whispered Ethan's name. There was no response. The room remained silent. Ha! A surge of anger rose in Leo. He yanked the covers tighter around himself and turned away again. Figured, he thought resentfully. Ethan had always been reserved with him physically. In their year-long relationship, the number of times they had been intimate could be counted on one hand. It was a long-distance relationship. They barely saw each other twice a semester, and it was always Leo making the effort to visit. He thought sourly that maybe he just didn't do it for Ethan. If it had been a beautiful woman with a tiny waist and long legs, Ethan would probably be wide awake right now. After all, unlike him, who was gay from the start, Ethan had been a perfectly straight guy until Leo had come along and fixed that. Lost in these thoughts, Leo eventually drifted off to sleep. And only after he was deeply asleep, his limbs sprawled out, having kicked off the covers, did the person feigning sleep beside him open his eyes. He watched Leo for a long time before quietly getting up to pull the blanket back over him. The next morning, Ethan was gone. His side of the bed was cold, indicating he had been up for a while. Leo sat up in bed, disoriented, his hair a mess. He got up, brushed his teeth, and went downstairs. The house was empty. His dad and Sarah were likely at work, and he had no idea where Ethan had gone. Breakfast was left on the table for him to heat up. He lifted the plate cover to find a bowl of oatmeal, 2 strips of bacon, and a breakfast burrito. After eating, Leo found himself at a loss. During past breaks, he would either be playing video games or attached to Ethan's hip. They were like twins, always together. When Ethan had a part-time job as an SAT tutor, his valedictorian status commanding a higher fee, Leo, who couldn't hope for such a position, would wait for him in the lobby, playing on his phone for hours. He had even become friends with the young woman at the front desk, and they would place their coffee orders together. He remembered her, a cheerful woman in her early 20s, asking him with a smile if the guy inside was his actual brother. She'd commented on how devoted he was, waiting every day, and what a great relationship they must have. He would peek into the classroom through the glass panel on the door. Mr. Chun would be dressed in a simple white t-shirt and jeans, looking refined and handsome, but utterly unapproachable. Facing a room of students not much younger than himself, his expression broadcasted a clear, "Do not mess with me" message. Leo had chuckled at the sight. That was just last winter. He had proudly puffed out his chest, wanting to tell the receptionist, "No, he's my boyfriend." But the words had died on his tongue. He had just turned back and smiled, saying he was his childhood friend, that he was brilliant, the valedictorian of their graduating class. He couldn't help but feel proud. He knew every one of Ethan's accomplishments, every shiny medal and award, better than Sarah did. And this amazing person belonged to him. He had wanted to shout it from the rooftops, but had to suppress it, nearly driving himself crazy. But it was a good thing he hadn't, Leo thought now, chewing on the last piece of bacon. He grabbed the keys to his scooter and headed toward Sarah's bakery. When you're in love, everything is perfect. The thought of breaking up had never crossed his mind. If anyone had dared to suggest his first love would end in failure, he probably would have punched them. But now, with a clear head, he realized that most first loves don't last. It was like an immutable law of nature. Leo parked his scooter and saw Sarah bustling inside her bakery. Her business was always good, but it was only 9 in the morning, so the shop wasn't crowded. Sarah and 2 employees were preparing pastries. Leo leaned against his scooter, remembering a time when he had been so bold as to consider coming out for Ethan. He had lain on his hard dorm bed, filled with heroic notions. If they were going to come out, he would be the one to do it. If there were consequences, he would take the fall. Ethan, despite being a good fighter, was a model student and probably had little experience with getting into trouble. Leo didn't care. He had thick skin, having spent his entire childhood in a playful tug-of-war with his father. He wasn't afraid. But now he realized it had all been his own impulsive, one-sided fantasy. He had never even asked Ethan what he thought, just made the decision for him. It was a good thing he had hesitated, unable to come up with the right words, and delayed it. If he had recklessly come out back then, what a mess it would be now. Leo ran a hand through his hair and pushed open the bakery door. He called out with a smile, saying he was here to help. Sarah was kneading dough and looked up with a gentle smile. She asked if he had eaten breakfast. He had. Helping out at the bakery was nothing new for him. He expertly grabbed an apron from the back and, since his hair was a bit long, found a small hair tie to pull it back, revealing a clean forehead. He looked refreshingly handsome. The two employees, both in their 30s, smiled at him and commented to Sarah on how handsome her son was. They knew about her engagement to Leo's father and their close family relationship, so a little teasing was harmless. Sarah was pleased. She glanced at Leo with pride, for once not being modest, and agreed softly. She then told Leo that there would be fresh egg tarts soon, and he should have a couple. Leo agreed and started stocking shelves and manning the cash register. He spent the better part of the day there. Sarah wasn't in the best of health, and though he never said it, he worried about her and wanted to help as much as he could. But as evening approached, Sarah patted his shoulder and said with a smile that he wasn't allowed to come tomorrow. She told him that he and Ethan rarely got a vacation and shouldn't spend it helping her. They should go out and have fun with their friends. Leo smiled and didn't argue. But his eyes drifted to the people outside the window, and after a moment's hesitation, he asked casually where Ethan was today. Sarah seemed surprised. She explained that he had gone to help his old calligraphy teacher with his computer and also had some things to buy, so he hadn't come home for lunch. She asked if Ethan hadn't told him. That was unusual. Ethan never told anyone his plans, but he always told Leo. Leo's expression stiffened for a second before he smiled again. He guessed it was because he had been sleeping. Just then, the shop door opened. Leo looked up instinctively, starting to say, "Welcome," but the last word caught in his throat. It wasn't a customer, but Ethan. He had one hand on the door and was carrying a shopping bag in the other. Sarah smiled. She asked why Ethan was there too. Ethan walked over, glanced at Leo, and said casually that he saw it was still early and thought he would come help. Sarah laughed, telling him she had just been saying the same thing to Leo, that there wasn't much to do. She told them to go out and have fun and not to hang around the shop. Ethan gave a non-committal response. For the next hour, Ethan handled the cash register and made coffee, while Leo bagged pastries for customers. They barely exchanged a word, but moved with an innate synchronicity, a single glance conveying everything. When a fresh batch of egg tarts came out of the oven, Leo ate one, getting a crumb on his lip without realizing it, and then foolishly took a sip of milk. Ethan noticed and pulled him over. The force was surprisingly strong, and Leo nearly stumbled into his arms. "What are you doing?" Leo flinched and instinctively looked towards the back where Sarah was. But she, despite seeing them, paid no mind and continued chatting with her staff. Ethan reached up and wiped the crumb from Leo's lip. The pad of his finger brushed against Leo's mouth, soft, red, a place he had kissed countless times. The contact lasted only a second before he let go, and the space between them seemed to cool instantly. He asked what the big deal was, that there was a piece of tart on his lip and he was just getting it. Ethan's face was impassive. He asked if Leo's jumpiness was a deliberate attempt to make their families suspicious. Leo opened his mouth to argue, feeling like Ethan was unfairly blaming him, but he knew he had overreacted. This was how they had always been. He couldn't refute it. Leo pressed his lips together, took a step back, and said nothing more. After a while, it was 7:30, time for dinner. Leo had been planning to order takeout, but Sarah announced she was going to bring dinner to David and told them to go eat by themselves. There wasn't much left to do at the shop, so she left it in the hands of her employees. She took off her apron and told them to go have dinner together and not to come back afterward. She waved and left, leaving Leo and Ethan facing each other. Finally, Ethan pushed open the door, his hand on the handle, and said, "Let's go. I'll treat you to Rosie's." Rosie's diner was just around the corner from the bakery. Leo didn't want to go, but remembering their agreement to act normal, he felt it would be petty to refuse. So he followed. It was prime dinner time and the place was packed. They waited for a bit before getting a table. They were regulars, having come here often since high school, and were friendly with the owner. Rosie, a woman with a warm smile, wiped down their table and greeted them cheerfully. She asked if they were on break, remarking on how close they were, always together as soon as they came home. Leo managed a tight smile and didn't correct her, getting up to grab utensils for both of them. He ordered for them out of habit, telling the waitress they'd have one bacon cheeseburger, one double-decker with fries, a basket of onion rings, and a plate of chili cheese fries. Rosie called the order into the kitchen and then grabbed 2 hard-boiled eggs from a jar on the counter. She placed them in a small bowl, saying they were on the house, and to eat them while they were hot. Ethan and Leo thanked her in unison. Rosie went to attend to other customers, but not before teasing Leo. She told him if he was feeling lazy, he could just make his brother peel the egg for him. They were such familiar faces that she knew all their quirks. Whenever Leo was feeling lazy, he would push his egg into Ethan's hands. At first, Rosie had found it odd, wondering why a grown boy couldn't peel his own egg, but she had gotten used to it. Leo couldn't help but glance at Ethan, his lips turning down in a slight frown. That was the worst part about being back. Every place they went, every friend, family member, and acquaintance was a reminder of how inseparable they had once been. For most people, a breakup meant a clean break, never seeing each other again. But not for them. They were forever entangled, like 2 conjoined trees with no blood relation, one always shadowing the other. To separate them would mean ripping them out at the roots. Ethan had also heard Rosie's comment and held out his hand to Leo. "Give it here," he said. But Leo ignored him. He rolled the egg on the table, tapped it once, and peeled the shell off in a few deft movements. Who said he couldn't do it? He had only done it before because Ethan spoiled him, and he liked to play it up. Ethan's outstretched hand was left empty. He watched Leo eat, his cheeks puffed out in a rebellious pout, and a small smile touched his lips. He didn't press the issue. After dinner, they walked home in silence. They strolled unhurriedly through the streets under a frosty moon, their shadows stretching long behind them. When they got to the house, his dad and Sarah weren't back yet, but the new light fixture for Ethan's room was on the table. Ethan picked it up, weighed it in his hand, and went to install it himself. Leo didn't want to get involved, but he couldn't help himself. He leaned against the doorframe, watching nervously as Ethan stood on a stepladder. "Do you even know how?" he asked, his voice full of doubt. He wanted to pull Ethan down. This was more complicated than changing a light bulb. He saw Ethan pull a mess of wires from the ceiling and was convinced he was about to get electrocuted. He told him if he didn't know how, he should just wait for his dad, who handled all the electrical work in the house. Ethan found his chatter annoying. He told him to just shut up. He replaced the fixture in a few quick movements, dusted himself off, jumped down from the ladder, and carried it back to the storage closet. When he returned, he found Leo with a broom and dustpan, cleaning up the debris he had left on the floor. His bed had also been tidied, though it was clear Leo wasn't used to making beds. The comforter was lumpy and uneven. Seeing Ethan, Leo froze like he'd been caught doing something wrong, looking at him foolishly. Ethan wasn't sure what he was feeling, something like a gentle prodding at his heart. But knowing Leo was embarrassed, he leaned against the doorframe and said coolly, "One semester of college, and you're already more diligent." Leo's ears burned. He felt like he was back in the moment he'd been caught hand-washing Ethan's clothes. Ethan had looked at him the same way then, but with far more intimacy. He had walked over, held him, kissed him, whispered his nickname in a way that was both mortifying and made his knees weak. Leo had had enough. He thrust the broom and dustpan into Ethan's hands. "You sweep it," he snapped, and stomped back to his own room, slamming the door with a bang that made Ethan's door rattle in its frame. Such a temper, Ethan thought, and so thin-skinned. He took the broom and swept up the last of the dust, but his mind was elsewhere. He remembered Leo trapped in his arms, his eyes misty, his lips red and slightly parted, looking nothing like his usual feisty self. He looked so docile, and a little clueless, staring up at him. Whatever he taught Leo to do, Leo would obey, even asking hesitantly if he was doing it right. He was like a candied plum. One bite and sweetness would burst forth. Ethan frowned, trying to force the thoughts away. His memory was too good for his own comfort. He took the trash bag out, then stared at Leo's closed door for a long time. It had been 5 months since Leo had broken up with him. The breakup had been messy and confusing. Leo's mood had been all over the place, but his decision had been firm. He wouldn't answer his calls or texts. Even when Ethan drove all the way to his school, Leo refused to see him. The last time they met, Leo's face had been ghostly pale. It was autumn, but standing under the streetlight, he had looked like he was made of snow, ready to melt. Ethan could still hear his words, asking him to please stop pushing, to let them part on good terms. He begged him. Thinking of it now, Ethan's expression remained cold. But as he tidied up the house a bit, then splashed cold water on his face in the bathroom, he saw in the mirror a pair of eyes filled with unshakable resolve. It would be a lie to say he wasn't angry with Leo. But whatever the reason for the breakup, Leo would eventually come back to him. Leo was naive and careless, and far too good at attracting people. He couldn't leave him out there on his own. He wasn't comfortable with that. Leo was oblivious to the scheming happening next door. He was finally enjoying having a big bed to himself, though he wasn't particularly happy about it. After a shower, he curled up and played on his phone. A notification popped up from his high school group chat. They were excitedly discussing a class reunion in a few days. The former sports captain, Mike, was taking a head count, tagging both Ethan and Leo. Even though Leo had been a terrible student, their high school didn't separate students by academic performance. The top 50 students had special training sessions, but otherwise, everyone was mixed together. As Leo scrolled through the messages, he saw Ethan's name again. Mike, "Hey Ethan, aren't you speaking at the alumni event in a few days? We should all go and support you. Be his cheering section and we can see some old teachers too." Leo paused. He remembered now. Ethan, as their class president and the year's valedictorian, had been invited back with a few other top graduates to share their experiences and motivate the current seniors before their final exams. The event was in the school auditorium. He had heard Sarah mention it. It wasn't unusual. When they were seniors, the previous year's graduates had done the same. He and Ethan had sat in the audience together, the alumni on stage giving passionate speeches while they shared a bag of flamin' hot Cheetos below. That was one of the few times Ethan acted like a normal teenager. He couldn't really handle spicy food, but if Leo fed him a piece, he would eat it, all while maintaining a serious expression and applauding the speaker. Leo smiled at the memory, but the smile quickly faded. Someone in the chat asked if he was going. Another classmate answered for him. Of course Leo's going. Even if no one else goes, Leo will be there to support Ethan. Besides, Mr. Henderson loved you, you have to go see him, right? Leo frowned. He hesitated for a moment before typing slowly. We'll see. I'm kind of busy these days. He wasn't sure if he'd have time, and if not, he'd just go straight to dinner. A flurry of messages followed. Busy with what? Ethan speaking on stage is a huge deal. You have to be in the fan club. Yeah, come on. Just dinner is boring. Let's all go back and walk around the old school. Exactly, I was hoping to shoot some hoops with you. The chat was a chaotic mix of voices, all expressing surprise. The two of them had always been inseparable. When Leo played basketball, Ethan would always be there waiting for him. The thought of only one of them showing up felt strange. Leo bit his lip. I really do have something, he typed, but before he could hit send, there was a knock on his bedroom door. He reluctantly got out of bed and opened it. It was Ethan, of course, dressed in similar pajamas and holding a small box. Leo leaned against the doorframe. What? He asked irritably. Ethan handed him the box. I forgot to give you this. Leo looked inside and saw a small, new humidifier. I noticed last night the heating makes it really dry in here. Your lips were chapped, Ethan explained, his voice even. So I bought you one. I already washed it. Remember to fill it with distilled water. After saying his piece, he turned and went back to his room without waiting for a reaction, the door closing with a soft click. The overhead light in the hallway flickered, and Leo's shadow wavered on the floor. Leo stood in the doorway holding the humidifier, the weight of it heavy in his hands. He stood there for a while before going back to bed. After a moment of contemplation, he unpacked it and set it up. He filled it with water, and a quiet stream of mist began to curl into the air, moistening the space around his bed. He stared at it, lost in thought, until his phone buzzed again. People in the group chat were still teasing him, asking where he'd disappeared to. Leo was popular and got along with everyone, so they all enjoyed joking with him. He hesitated, then deleted the message he had typed. I'll try to make it. Leo said he would try, but when the day came, he was there on time, sitting in the audience. The alumni event was in the school auditorium. His old classmates from senior class 17 all sat together in the back row. Some were only coming to the dinner later, but a solid dozen of them showed up, the ones who had been closest to him and Ethan. Sitting next to Leo was Chloe, the former arts committee chair. Next to her was Mike, the sports captain. They were a couple and immediately started whispering to each other. Leo didn't want to eavesdrop, and his phone was low on battery, so he focused on the stage. The school had invited 4 alumni. They each gave speeches filled with the usual platitudes, encouraging the students to study hard for a bright future. In Leo's opinion, the least sincere of them was definitely Ethan. He had personally witnessed Ethan write his speech in 10 minutes the day before, the words flowing effortlessly. For the past few days, they had fallen into a superficial peace, tacitly maintaining a facade of brotherly harmony for their parents. Leo had been playing a game on the sofa and glanced at Ethan's laptop. He couldn't resist poking him. You're not just recycling an old speech, are you? Ethan glanced at him. What do you think? The printer spit out the single A4 page. Ethan waved it in front of Leo's face. It was the draft from their own 100-day pre-exam assembly, with the second half slightly modified. Ethan calmly stated that no one would listen anyway, and whether they got into a top university wasn't dependent on his pep talk. They would be better off doing a practice test than listening to a speech. He knew it. Ethan, who never even took notes in class, writing a heartfelt speech? Not a chance. But no matter how lazily written his speech was, Ethan was undoubtedly the main attraction. When he walked onto the stage, the auditorium fell silent. There was no dress code, so Ethan wore casual clothes, a black jacket over a light gray turtleneck. His face was striking, his posture ramrod straight. Leo clearly heard a girl in the row in front of him gasp. The two senior girls had been sneakily sharing snacks, but the moment Ethan appeared, the snacks were forgotten, and they applauded enthusiastically. He overheard them whispering about which graduating class that handsome upperclassman was from. One of them said if she had known there would be such a good-looking guy, she would have dragged her friend along instead of letting her skip. Leo almost laughed. The other girl had already taken out her phone. It was too late to call her, she said, but she could take some pictures for her. Chloe heard them too and shook with silent laughter. She whispered to Leo, "Our class president's charm hasn't faded one bit." She recalled a junior who had sworn to study hard just to get into the same college as Ethan, and she actually did it. Chloe added that maybe these events weren't entirely useless. The sight of Ethan might genuinely motivate some people. Leo spun his phone in his hand. "It's not that exaggerated," he said. "He wasn't a young Leonardo DiCaprio." Chloe nudged him. "Oh, stop it. You're his biggest defender. Everything about Ethan is perfect to you. When the exam results came out, you were happier than he was. You must be so proud seeing him up there now." Leo didn't answer. If he was being honest, he did feel a little proud. Even though they were broken up, Ethan was still family. He would always be proud of Ethan's accomplishments. Half an hour later, Ethan's speech was over. The students applauded dutifully, Leo among them. But he soon noticed that instead of joining the teachers in the front row, Ethan was heading straight for the back. He nodded at his former classmates as he made his way down the aisle, then bent down and stopped next to Leo. Leo looked up at him. Ethan looked down at him, his profile sharp and handsome. He rested a hand on the back of the chair in front of them, making the two girls sitting there visibly flustered. "Move your leg," Ethan said. Leo didn't want to. There were plenty of empty seats in the row. But Ethan showed no intention of sitting anywhere else. And with so many people around, Leo didn't want to make a scene. He pulled his legs in. The seat next to him creaked as it was lowered, and then he felt a weight on his shoulder. Ethan was leaning on him. Leo went completely rigid. "Let me rest for a minute. I didn't sleep well last night," Ethan said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. His eyes lowered and noticed a few candies in Leo's palm. Without asking, he took one. "Where'd you get these mints?" "Chloe gave them to me, to stay awake," Leo said, trying to ignore the weight on his shoulder as he scrolled through his phone, though the battery was dangerously low. Ethan asked if his speech was that boring. He noticed the low battery and pulled a small portable charger from his pocket, the cable already attached, and pressed it into Leo's hand. Then he slowly unwrapped the mint and popped it into his mouth. "Too sweet," he murmured, but because he was so close, it sounded like he was whispering directly into Leo's ear. Leo's hand tightened around the charger. It was designed with two little devil horns, which were now digging into his palm. He could smell the mint on Ethan's breath, mixed with a creamy sweetness. It was very sweet. He paused for a moment, trying to calm his suddenly racing heart, before slowly plugging the cable into his phone. A small chime indicated it was charging, a reminder that his feelings for Ethan were also still being replenished. He still couldn't be indifferent to him. For months and 27 days after their breakup, he could still feel his heart pound just from Ethan resting his head on his shoulder. The auditorium was full of people. His former classmates were right beside him. Someone was still speaking on stage, a gentle but firm female voice echoing through the hall. He could hear the low murmur of conversations from the audience. But to him, the world felt quiet, as if he had been transported back to their high school study hall. Back then, they would lean on each other just like this, sharing a pair of earbuds, listening to the same song. Leo stared at his phone, pretending to read some gossip, but the words were a blur. Ethan was too close. If he turned his head slightly, his lips would brush against Ethan's forehead. The thought made him sit bolt upright, afraid to move. It reminded him of their first kiss, also in their senior year. When Ethan had won a scholarship, Leo, for no reason at all, had insisted on treating their class to dinner. It was just a few months before their final exams, and everyone seized the opportunity to let off steam. The party got rowdy. A group of them, high on soda and a few sips of a spiked punch, started teasing him, asking if he and Ethan were actual brothers, or if there was something more going on, because why else would he be so invested? At the time, Leo hadn't yet figured things out. He was sitting on Ethan's lap without a hint of self-consciousness, his face flushed from the small amount of alcohol. He had touched Ethan's face, his eyes bright with a drunken haze. "You guys are just figuring this out now?" He'd slurred. "Ethan and I were betrothed as children. All that's left is the ceremony." Ethan knew he was drunk and didn't pay him any mind, but he was smiling. The rest of the class, always eager for drama, started banging on the table, nearly raising the roof. Someone shouted, "Then kiss. Kiss him." He knew they were just joking, that no one took it seriously. But Ethan was looking at him with that smile, his face under the warm lights stripped of its usual coolness, looking incredibly gentle. He didn't know what came over him. He looked at Ethan, leaned in, and actually kissed him on the cheek, his lips just grazing the corner of Ethan's mouth. They both froze. The room was too loud, everyone's attention already elsewhere. Only the two of them were looking at each other, their breath mingling. Leo thought, "This is it, Ethan's going to kill me." Even he wanted to punch himself. But Ethan just looked at him with an unreadable expression for a long moment, then simply patted his head. "You've had too much to drink," he said, dismissing the incident lightly. But Leo had tossed and turned all night. Staring at his phone, Leo felt a mix of emotions. That night was over 3 years ago. He wondered if Ethan even remembered. For him, it had been his first kiss, the moment he had vaguely sensed that something was different about his feelings. A realization he had promptly buried like an ostrich, convincing himself it was just a joke. For Ethan, it was probably just another ordinary, forgettable night. As he was thinking, he felt a warmth spread across his hand. He looked down and saw that Ethan's hand had somehow found its way to his, their fingers lacing together. He glanced over, but Ethan's eyes were still closed, as if it were an unconscious gesture. At 4 in the afternoon, the event ended. The seniors filed out of the auditorium, ready to start their short but precious winter break. A few of them lingered, clutching their phones, and made their way toward the back row. Leo didn't notice at first, until a pair of slender fingers tugged at his sleeve. He turned and saw one of the girls who had been sitting in front of him. She had a cute face and short hair with curled ends. "Hi, can I get your Instagram?" she asked with a confident smile. Leo was surprised. "How do you know I'm an alum?" he asked with a laugh. "You're not in uniform," she pointed out. "And I heard you guys talking. You were in senior class 17. That's my class now, too. What a coincidence." Leo hadn't expected to attract attention while just sitting in the back. He had assumed all eyes would be on Ethan. The thought made him a little smug, and he glanced in Ethan's direction. But Ethan was surrounded by a few ambitious seniors, deep in a conversation about competitions and university applications. He didn't have a moment to spare for Leo. Disappointed, Leo turned back to the girl. He held up his phone. "Sorry, I don't really add people," he said, his rejection direct but delivered with a charming, friendly smile that made it seem sincere. A word of advice. Any college guy who comes back to his high school to hit on seniors is probably not a great guy. You'd be better off dating someone in your own class. He thought for a moment, then gave her one of the mints Chloe had given him. "Good luck on your exams." He gave her a small wave and walked over to his classmates. Mike asked him what the girl wanted. Leo hopped up onto the railing. "Nothing," he said. She was asking about college applications, but unfortunately for her, she asked the wrong guy. This upperclassman slept through most of his classes. He lightly kicked Mike. "Don't expose me." The girl, walking past with her phone, overheard their conversation and gave him a lingering look. Damn it, he was even more attractive now. Ethan was sharing his experience with the students, but a part of his attention was on Leo. He was close enough to have heard the girl ask for his Instagram, not for advice. A faint annoyance stirred in him, the feeling of someone coveting what was his. He was possessive by nature and hated when anyone got too close to Leo. And Leo himself was completely oblivious. He had been popular since high school, a magnet for attention, and nothing had changed. Ethan glanced over and saw Leo roughhousing with his friends again, not even sitting still on the railing, plucking leaves from a nearby bush and stuffing them down their friend's collar, only to be chased down and have them stuffed back at him. Ethan's brow furrowed, his eyes darkening. He only snapped out of it when one of the students in front of him called his name. "Sorry, I was distracted. Any other questions?" His tone was even not particularly warm, but his explanations were the clearest. The students shook their heads, thanked him politely, and scurried off. Ethan walked over to Leo, who was still being chased by a few guys, laughing so hard he was out of breath. He looked no older than he had in high school, still completely unrestrained. Not watching where he was going, he ran straight into Ethan's chest. Ethan steadied him, then pulled him protectively into his arms. The other guys caught up, ready to drag Leo out, but stopped short when they met Ethan's cool gaze. Though he said nothing, a shiver went down their spines, a familiar feeling of being caught breaking the rules by the class president. "Aren't you a little old for this?" Ethan said, brushing leaf fragments from Leo's hair. "You're grown men, less disciplined than the current students. Aren't you afraid a teacher will see you?" Leo was indignant. He looked up from Ethan's chest, his eyebrows raised in defiance. "Let them see. I wasn't disrupting the event. Besides, I've already graduated. What are they going to do, give me detention?" Ethan gave a sarcastic little laugh. "You want to test that? See if I can give you detention?" The words sent a chill down Leo's spine. He remembered a time in their senior year when he had failed 3 quizzes in a row, dropping to the bottom of the class rankings. Ethan had made him bend over a desk and swatted him a few times. It hadn't hurt, but it had been humiliating. He felt a flush of shame but didn't dare provoke Ethan further. The jerk lived under the same roof as him now. There was no telling what he would do if he was angered. He pouted, shot Ethan a glare, and fell silent. Their reunion dinner was set for 6 at Smokey's barbecue pit, just behind the school. With an hour to kill, the group trooped over to the teachers' offices. Their old homeroom teacher, Mr. Henderson, was still teaching seniors, paired with their English teacher. Seeing his former students, no matter how much trouble they had caused, now filled him with a certain fondness. He asked them about their colleges, if they had passed their proficiency exams, and what their plans were after graduation. The moment he heard the word English, Leo instinctively tried to hide behind Ethan, but the English teacher, a sharp woman in her 40s, spotted him immediately. She looked him over with a smile. "What are you hiding for? I was asking you, did you pass your exams? You used to fall asleep in my class all the time, drawing on your desk. How about now?" Leo was embarrassed. English had been his worst subject, and he had definitely been a handful for her, with more written punishments than anyone else. "I barely passed," he admitted, showing her with his fingers. 425. 1 point lower and I would have failed. The teacher laughed, not mockingly, but with a hint of relief. "Well, that's something. It wasn't a complete waste. Passing on the first try is good enough." Her gaze shifted to Ethan, and her expression filled with pride. Ethan had represented the school in English competitions and had never placed outside the top 10 in the grade on any English exam. She peeled an orange the students had brought and gave half to Leo and Ethan. Her voice was much gentler than it had been in the classroom. "You've all grown up so much. You were all just kids in your uniforms back then, and now you look so mature." She reminisced, "I remember you two were neighbors. Ethan's mom even came to a parent-teacher conference for you once. Do you still live next to each other?" It was an innocent, conversational question, but Leo and Ethan instinctively looked at each other. Not just next to each other, but closer, under the same roof. Their relationship had been upgraded too, but neither of them wanted to discuss their private lives. Leo nodded vaguely. "Yeah, still neighbors. We never moved." "That's wonderful," the teacher said. "You'll find that you keep in touch with fewer and fewer classmates over time. It's rare to see so many of you come back together to visit after a couple of years. You should hold on to that." She patted Leo's shoulder with a smile. Even though he had been a troublemaker, she remembered a time she had sprained her ankle, and he had been the first to rush over and help her to the nurse's office. She had always had a soft spot for him. "You have to keep studying hard in college, you know. Don't slack off just because you're done with high school. Come back and visit when you have time. We won't mind." Leo had a weakness for gentle, older women, whether it was Sarah or his English teacher. He nodded meekly like a lamb. "I will." After lingering in the teacher's office for an hour, the group was finally shooed off to dinner. They tried to invite the teachers, but they had their own plans. Mr. Henderson waved them off. "You kids go have fun. Next time you're back, I'll treat you to the duck place next to the school." The group erupted in laughter. Someone shouted, "Mr. Henderson, shouldn't that be a full-course banquet?" "Get out of here, Mr. Henderson said with a mock grumble. "In your dreams." Smokey's barbecue pit was in an alley behind the school and had been their go-to spot for gatherings for 3 years. The owner was a young guy with tattooed arms who looked intimidating but was actually very easygoing. He was familiar with their class and had saved the largest private room for them, even throwing in a pitcher of beer on the house. By the time they arrived, the others who hadn't attended the alumni event started to trickle in. Except for a few who were out of town or genuinely busy, most of the class was there. They packed into the large room, squeezing around 2 tables. It was crowded, but no one minded. The room was already deafeningly loud before they had even ordered. Everyone was catching up, the topics ranging from football to college projects, from complaining about exams to reminiscing about the breakfast burrito stand in front of the school. Ethan naturally claimed the spot next to Leo. Everyone else tacitly accepted this, no one trying to take his place. But Leo had been busy from the moment he walked in, his seat a revolving door of visitors. He had always been the one to organize class activities, thanks to his popularity with both guys and girls. It was the same now. Every person who came in stopped by his seat for a moment. The girls even showed him their new manicures and hairstyles. Leo was patient, smiling, leaning back in his chair with his face tilted up, his eyes curved into crescents. Ethan heard someone next to him remark, "Man, our boy Leo still got it. Half the girls in our class had a crush on him, and he can still be friends with them without any awkwardness. That's impressive." Ethan glanced to his right. The guy sitting there was a dark-skinned, monolithed boy he vaguely recognized from sitting in front of them in their senior year. Ethan had missed last year's reunion, so he hadn't seen him in over a year. But the guy wasn't shy, slinging an arm around his shoulders. "Ethan, my man, you still remember me? Or am I too handsome to recognize now?" Ethan gave a faint smile. "Ryan, you think I'm that forgetful? I knew you wouldn't forget," Ryan said, happily punching his arm. "All those times I covered for you and Leo when you skipped class. Though I did copy a lot of your homework." He looked over at Leo. "Is Leo ever going to be free? Oh, isn't that Ashley with him? Damn, our class beauty is even prettier now." At the mention of that name, the smile on Ethan's face faded. He looked over and saw that the crowd around Leo had thinned. Most people were seated and ordering food. The girl standing next to Leo was not very tall, wearing a short skirt even in the dead of winter. Her coat was draped over her arm, revealing a white cashmere sweater underneath. She had a pretty, delicate face and a sweet smile, and was speaking softly to Leo. The people around them had even quieted down a bit. A few of the guys were sneaking shy glances at Ashley, then looking at Leo with teasing expressions. Only Ethan's expression flattened. He was indifferent to most of his classmates, but not hostile. Leo had always dragged him into social events, and he went along to not spoil his fun. But Ashley was an exception. He hadn't forgotten that, at the beginning of their senior year, she had given Leo a love letter. And Leo had almost accepted. If he hadn't intervened, she might have been Leo's first love. Sensing his gaze, Ashley glanced over and gave Ethan an instinctive smile. Ethan nodded back. He picked up a menu and draped an arm over Leo's shoulder in an overly familiar gesture, pulling him close. He lowered his eyes. "Don't just talk. Order your food. Everyone's waiting for you." Leo was startled and looked up into Ethan's eyes. Thick lashes, dark irises, and the clean, fresh scent of his body wash. So faint it was almost unnoticeable. He had been talking to Ashley about music. Her younger sister was also learning guitar, so she had a lot of questions. His brain was still stuck on chord progressions and hadn't processed Ethan's words. "What?" he asked dumbly, forgetting to push Ethan away. No one else seemed to think their posture was odd. This was just how they were. If it had been anyone else, it might have raised eyebrows, but everyone was used to them being inseparable since high school. Ethan tapped the menu. "I said, order your food." He then looked at Ashley. "Shouldn't you go order, too? There's a spot at that table." His voice was neutral, no different from usual, but Ashley paused, sensing an unwelcome vibe. But she didn't know Ethan well enough to be sure. She smiled. "Okay, I'll go sit over there." She moved to an empty seat at the other table. By now, Leo had come to his senses. He felt uncomfortable being held by Ethan. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "Let go of me. I can order my own food." Ethan didn't argue and released him. But Leo soon discovered he didn't need to order at all. Ethan had already ordered all his favorite dishes, with the note, medium spicy, no garlic. Leo was speechless. He handed the menu to the waiter. He opened a beer. "Why did you ask me to order if you already did?" Ethan didn't answer. He passed his own glass to Leo to be filled. "Because I didn't want to see you talking to her." Leo was confused. He didn't understand what Ethan meant. Ethan looked at him, his gaze direct. "I don't like her." With that, he turned away. Leo was baffled for a while, until halfway through the dinner, it suddenly clicked. He remembered why Ethan disliked Ashley. They had barely interacted in their junior and senior years, but at the start of senior year, Ashley had given him a love letter. At the thought, Leo rubbed his nose, feeling a little guilty. He had been such an idiot back then, never considering the possibility that he might be gay, let alone his feelings for Ethan. Everyone around him was dating girls, or at least had a crush on one, so he had assumed he should have a high school romance too. Ashley was pretty and nice, always gentle with him. He enjoyed talking to her and mistook that for love. He had excitedly shown the letter to Ethan, announcing he was about to be in a relationship. And then Ethan had spanked him. For real. After the spanking, Ethan hadn't been angry. He had leaned against the table, holding the pink letter, and logically explained to him what liking someone really meant. Concluding that Leo didn't like Ashley at all, he was just attracted to her looks. "You're being shallow and immature," Ethan had said coolly. "If you were madly in love, I wouldn't stop you. But what feelings could you possibly have for her? Your grades have already slipped this month. If you start dating, are you planning on not even getting into college? Leo, you said you wanted to go to the same city as me. Is this your commitment?" He had been so thoroughly lectured that he couldn't even look up. Though he was a little resentful and his pride was hurt, he had obediently returned the letter to Ashley the next day. After that, the chapter was closed. Ashley had taken it well and still greeted him, though they were no longer as close. It was Ethan who had become even stricter with him after that. But in the end, he hadn't gotten into the university Ethan had planned for him, nor had he ended up in the same city. Thinking about it now, Leo felt a pang of guilt toward Ashley. He couldn't help but look over at her. Though she was innocent, knowing Ethan, the petty bastard had probably held a grudge against her for being a distraction. He saw Ashley at the other table, drinking a soda and chatting with her friends, as good-natured and cheerful as ever. Ethan had been right. He had been so shallow he didn't even know what love was. Yet he had thought he could be in a relationship. If he had actually dated Ashley, it would have been disrespectful to her. He watched her for a few more moments before turning back, only to meet Ethan's gaze. Ethan was looking at him coldly. "Enjoying the view?" The words were dripping with sarcasm. Leo frowned. "What are you talking about?" Ethan also glanced at Ashley. "I remember she gave you a love letter in high school. Why do you keep looking at her? Still have feelings? Regret that I broke you up? Are you insane?" Leo was truly amazed by Ethan's ability to stir up trouble. The whole class was here. Though no one was paying attention to them, he still lowered his voice and said through gritted teeth, "Ethan, what kind of crazy talk is that? You know I'm gay, right?" His first love was Ethan. It was one thing to be clueless in high school, but how could Ethan not know he had no interest in women now? Leo's fists itched. He was sure Ethan was doing this on purpose, just to pick a fight with him. "Don't start things," Leo said. "Even if I find someone else, it's gonna be a guy, not a girl." Ethan's expression, which had softened slightly at "you know I'm gay," hardened again at the last sentence. He gripped his glass, his face like stone, his dark eyes fixed on Leo. The look was almost frightening. "Say that again." Your next one? Who are you planning to find? Leo realized he had misspoken. Regardless of the depth of Ethan's feelings for him, he had been a serious and responsible boyfriend. And Leo had been the one to dump him without explanation. He was at fault. To talk about his next one now was cruel. He wanted to apologize but didn't know how. No one. I was just talking nonsense, he mumbled. Ethan continued to stare at him, as if weighing the truth of his words. After a moment, he let out a low, ironic laugh and turned away, starting to drink with others, leaving Leo with nothing but his cold back. For the rest of the evening, Ethan didn't say another word to him. By the time the party was winding down, the room was in chaos. Everyone had had a little to drink, and their faces were flushed from the heat and alcohol. The food had been cleared away, replaced by rows of beer bottles for drinking games. Those who couldn't drink watched from the sidelines, cheering everyone on. Neither Leo nor Ethan escaped being dragged into the games. Leo was too good-natured to refuse, and Ethan, when asked, had looked at Leo before unexpectedly nodding. Count me in. The first few rounds were a dice game. You rolled, and whatever number came up, you added more alcohol to that numbered cup. Whoever drew that number had to drink it. Leo's luck was terrible. He had already been penalized 3 times. His fair skin was flushed a deep red. As he resignedly reached for the 4th cup, a long, slender hand intercepted it. I'll take it, Ethan said, his expression calm. This game allows for a substitute, right? I'll drink for him. Leo was stunned. His head was fuzzy, his vision blurred. He looked dazed but obedient. He belatedly understood what Ethan was doing and reached for the cup. You don't have to. I can drink it. But Ethan wouldn't let him. He raised the cup high. When Leo reached for it, he lost his balance and stumbled into Ethan's arms. Ethan, one hand holding the cup steady, used the other to catch him. Leo ended up sprawled on Ethan's shoulder. He smelled faintly of alcohol, his cheeks burning hot against Ethan's. And then, at the same moment, they both turned their heads. A soft touch. Their lips brushed against each other. Leo, with one knee on Ethan's leg, saw his own reflection in Ethan's eyes. History was repeating itself. A class reunion, drunk, sitting on Ethan's lap, kissing his lips. The difference was the first time had been a secret, his own private chaos. This time it was in front of everyone. The noisy crowd fell silent for a second, then erupted, banging on the tables. The cheers were like a tidal wave, strong enough to shake the walls. Leo scrambled away from Ethan, stumbling back to his seat. The guys were still laughing and clapping. The girls were a bit more reserved but were giggling into their hands. No one suspected anything. They just saw it as a wild, drunken accident between 2 very close friends. Someone even said to Leo, "Don't be shy, man. It's just Ethan. Your relationship is close enough for a kiss. We wouldn't mind another one." Leo's ears were burning. He flipped the guy off. "Screw you." He didn't dare look at Ethan. He didn't know what Ethan was thinking. They were broken up, had been in a cold war just moments ago, and now they had accidentally kissed again. Would Ethan be disgusted? Or would he just brush it off? Leo's mind was a mess, but he kept his head down, avoiding Ethan's gaze. That drink was ultimately consumed by Ethan. 1 cup wasn't enough. He had to drink 2, as the substitute penalty was double. Ethan drank without a word of protest, his movements swift and clean. He finished both cups and showed the empty bottoms, his expression unchanged. That particular drink was the strongest, as it had been mixed with whiskey. The people around him gave him a thumbs up. "Impressive, man." Mike, standing behind Leo, clapped his shoulder and joked, "See? Our class president still looks out for you. Leo, you're gonna have to repay him with your body." Leo wearily said screw you for the second time. He knew Ethan was good to him. Too good. He took care of him in every way, and sometimes that was what hurt the most. Fortunately, Leo wasn't penalized in the subsequent rounds. Instead, Ethan seemed to have all the bad luck. It was almost 9 and people were starting to talk about leaving, though no one really wanted to. They played one last round, a word game where mistakes meant drinking and answering a question. Leo was on high alert, not wanting to be tricked again, but this time it was Ethan who messed up. Not just him, everyone was surprised. Ethan rarely lost at games that required quick thinking. Ethan was nonchalant. He picked up his glass. "I lost. Ask away." Everyone got excited. After some pushing and shoving, a short-haired girl was nominated to ask the question. She seemed shy and tried to back away but was pushed forward by her friend. Leo watched her for a moment and vaguely remembered her. Her name was Amber. She had always sat in the front row, quiet and introverted, and he thought she might have had a little crush on Ethan in high school. She was more confident now than she had been then. She smiled shyly but didn't back down. "President, I won't ask you anything too difficult," she said. "Did you have a crush on anyone in high school? Be honest." The girls behind her giggled, and everyone looked at Ethan expectantly. The room had quieted down as people prepared to leave. They were all tired but curious to see Ethan in a tight spot. Ethan was still seated. He glanced at Leo, who was standing and leaning against the wall. Among the crowd of young men and women, Leo, in his turtleneck sweater, with his fair skin and flushed face and lips, looked like a vivid oil painting that should be hidden away in a secret room. Yes. The word silenced the entire room. Everyone, including Leo, had expected him to say no. Leo stared at him in disbelief. Someone let out a "holy shit," and the room exploded. Mike grabbed Ethan's shoulders and shook him. "Who? President, that's not cool. You had a crush? Who was it? Did you get together? Did you date?" Ethan remained unperturbed, his expression calm. He removed Mike's hands from his shoulders. "That's a second question." Despite their persistent questioning, no one could get another word out of him. It was 9:30, and people finally started to leave. But even though Ethan wouldn't say, their curiosity was far from satisfied. This was Ethan, the guy who was immune to rumors. In their 3 years of high school, he had been like a monk, rejecting every girl who had a crush on him or confessed to him with the same cool indifference. The guys used to joke that he had studied so hard he'd forgotten how to have feelings. And this person had had a secret crush? It was unbelievable. Leo followed the group down the stairs, overhearing someone ask, "Leo, the president won't say. You tell us. Who was his crush?" "Yeah, I won't be able to sleep tonight. I'm so curious." Leo's hand on the railing tightened. He looked ahead to Ethan, who was already on the ground floor, waiting for him. He stood there, tall and elegant, the alcohol seemingly having no effect on him. He still looked like a refined gentleman, his face unreadable. He must have heard the gossip, but he didn't seem to care. Leo forced a smile. "I don't know either." A collective groan of disappointment went through the group on the stairs. "No way. You're definitely covering for him. How could you not know?" "Exactly." But after a moment, someone whispered confidently, "Don't even guess." It was probably Isabel from class 3. They were always close. "She's pretty, she can sing." Weren't they always called the golden couple? If Isabel hadn't moved abroad. But someone else quickly cut them off. All right, stop gossiping. Could have been someone from our class. We had plenty of pretty girls too." They joked around as they descended the stairs. Only Leo moved slowly, even stopping for a moment on the landing. Isabel. He had caught that name in the midst of the noise. A pretty, graceful name for a pretty, graceful girl. It landed in his heart like a stone, sending ripples through him. He couldn't help but look at Ethan, wondering if he had heard them. But Ethan just stood there, waiting for him, his expression unchanged. Seeing Leo motionless, Ethan walked up 2 steps. "What are you spacing out for?" He looked at Leo closely, his expression still cool, but his voice softened. "Did you drink too much? Do you feel sick?" His voice was almost gentle. Leo didn't know why, but a sense of grievance welled up inside him. His nose and eyes stung, but he didn't want Ethan to see. He pushed Ethan's hand away. "I'm fine. I can walk." He started walking down without looking at him. Outside the restaurant, the group said their goodbyes, promising to meet up again soon. Slightly drunk, they stumbled off in different directions, arm in arm, humming songs. Leo and Ethan, of course, left together. The school wasn't far from their house, and since they had both been drinking, they decided to walk to clear their heads. The cold night air sobered Leo up a bit. He fumbled to put on his coat, his fingers numb from the alcohol, unable to do up the top buttons. Finally, Ethan couldn't watch anymore. "Come here. I'll do it for you." Leo didn't want him to, but Ethan pulled him over and pushed him against a wall. He buttoned up his coat, his fingers brushing against Leo's chin, just below his lips. Leo looked up at him with misty eyes, his head tilted slightly, as if waiting for a kiss. But Ethan quickly realized it was just an illusion. Leo pushed his hands away, a silent rejection. He looked down, his mind still foggy from the alcohol, and mumbled, "Ethan, can you just stop being so nice to me all the time?" His voice was filled with a clear anguish, as if he were trapped in a maze with no way out, exhausted and lost. Ethan froze, his expression turning cold. He looked down at Leo. "What do you mean?" Leo leaned against the wall, the black coat enveloping him, making him look even thinner than the last time he had seen him. A shadow of a person. He felt a frustration building inside him, a pain with no outlet, melting into his bones. He had wanted to say this back in the restaurant. "I know you're used to taking care of me, but we broke up. You don't have to." He added, "And don't say you're treating me like a brother. Brothers aren't like this." He meant every word. His eyes burned, and his chest felt tight. Ethan's brow furrowed. Leo continued, "Just now you were angry at me for what I said, but you still took that drink for me. I can't even button my own coat, and you have to do it for me. What kind of brothers are like that?" He let out a small, humorless laugh, but his eyes were red. "We've been close since we were kids. Everyone else thinks you're cold, but I know you've always had a soft spot for your family. But I'm 21 now. I don't need you to look after my every move. You should save all this attention for your future girlfriend." As he said the last 2 words, his voice trembled. Girlfriend. The word seemed to drain all the strength from him, and he had to bend over slightly to ease the ache in his chest. But he refused to show his weakness, still trying to act tough. Ethan watched him with a grim expression. Leo's eyes were red, but he was smiling, a painful, twisted smile. It reminded him of the night Leo had broken up with him. Under a similar streetlight, Leo had looked at him with the same red-rimmed eyes, his voice trembling as if his world were ending. But he had refused to take back his words. He had refused to take back the breakup. Ethan didn't move.